Hey gang, we are getting close to the end of our studies of how humans can impact the environment, and we're never quite ever completely done. This will always be a theme throughout the course. Well, what we're going to do now is we've looked at ways that humans can cause footprints, whether there be carbon footprints by releasing greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere, and then recently ecological footprints where we impact the environment in ways that it can't necessarily bounce back, or it's going to take a while to bounce back, or we interfere with natural processes, and so then the environment's not able to do what it was able to do before. In effect, taking resources away that we could maybe use if we need to. So what we're going to do with this activity is I've given you some snaps of aerial photos of McVicar Creek. So right here in the middle here, that building right in the middle of your screen, that is Superior High School. And one of the most amazing things about our school is we have this awesome outdoor classroom that we call McVicar Creek that we can study. And so one of the things I want us to do is to study the creek. And you can see the creek right here. If you follow the tree line, so just follow where my cursor is. This is the creek right behind the school, and I know a lot of kids know where that is. And I've taken classes out there fishing and that. And so for this activity, what you're going to be doing is identifying factors where humans have impacted the area around the creek. And I want you to think hard about how, what are the things we've done and what things might be going into the creek or taken away from the creek, and how might that affect the creek in terms of fish and things like that. Because a lot of people do like to fish. Steelhead season happens in May, late May, and there's lots of fish that you can catch there. So that's one of the things that we're going to focus on for this activity, is using aerial footage to look at the areas around and say, hey, how might humans be affecting it? So I'm just going to give you a little example. I'm going to pan sort of downstream a bit. We went upstream for the pictures, but I'm going to go downstream a little bit and just show you some of the neat stuff here real quick. So one of the things I'm going to do, you don't have to do this because I've done it. Oh, there's one of the pictures that we've done already, is I can take a snapshot, which is what I've done for you guys, and what I can do is just analyze it a little bit here, just so you guys can see what I focused on. So I can try and figure out the path of the creek, and I did that in red. And then I can look at the things around it. Here's the creek down here. And we can see that these homes are right on the edge of the creek. Now, the creek might actually bend and do something like this. I'm not quite sure. But one of the things I do notice is that we've got lots of bush in this area. So I'm going to use another color here. And this is what I'm going to expect you guys to do. So I'll use blue. So right around here, I can see that there's lots of tree cover, and that's good because the creek needs sheltering. That's really important. Lots of trees means trees equals less erosion, meaning that the bank of the creek isn't going to fall in. You can see all these tiny little turns and twists and things like that. If the bank starts to fall in and the creek gets wider, and that what will happen is the temperature is going to go up in the water there, and then less fish will be able to live there. Plus, the more that the bank falls in, the more issues with silt and sediment. And again, a lot of the fish don't like that. Now, some areas of concern I see are, and I'll use black, right here. I can see that there's a lawn there. No trees. And so that means that that area is not going to be protected as much. But there's something else we have to worry about too. A lawn can potentially mean two other things. Number one, fertilizer, because a lot of people like to fertilize their lawns. And with fertilizer, we've learned about what fertilizer can do to aquatic ecosystems. And so I'm not going to go into that because I know you guys have learned that. But I would like you to explain what those issues are. Like if there's fertilizer running off into the water, what would that do to the water? And a lot of people, I know especially my neighbors because they have much better lawns than I do, they put down pesticides. All right, and so what might pesticides do to the water in the creek? Could be definitely something that you need to talk about. Along the way, we might see things like roads and bridges. If you take a deep look, you might notice that there's a stormwater runoff. So I want you to analyze the area, go through every little bit. I've isolated the layout of the river, so the river I've always highlighted in red, so you can sort of follow it through the trees, which is difficult. But I want you to be looking at the surrounding area, and what's really important is I want you to follow two things. Number one, I want you to give me a statement. So I want you to state a factor. Identify a factor. So number one, give me a statement. And in your statement, I want you to identify the human impact. And in my case, it was a lawn. Number two, I want you to explain, using evidence, what that impact could be doing to the creek. Will or may. Now, when it comes to me assessing how well you understand this stuff, I expect that you're going to use evidence from our lessons. This is really going to tell me if you've understood this stuff. And there'll be a small follow-up activity where I'm going to get you to actually talk to me about this in person. You're going to pick one factor and we're going to have like a little discussion about it. All right. And so identifying the area, that's pretty straightforward. All right. Oh, we've got a lawn here. Now I want you to explain how that lawn will impact the creek. What are some things that if I see a lawn, I can identify maybe factors. So I said there could be fertilizer and there could be pesticides. Now, just by saying that, I'm really not going far enough. I need to go further and explain, what is in fertilizer and how would those things in the fertilizer affect the creek. Now, I know we have covered this, so I'm not going to go into that right now, but I would expect you to go to that level. And then same with pesticides. How might pesticides affect the fish and other aquatic organisms in the ecosystems, because fertilizer and pesticides could run off from a lawn. Also, the fact that we don't have any trees, we have fewer trees along the way, and so that may lead to more erosion. And what would that erosion do? So when it comes to evidence and explanations, it's really twofold. Number one, explain what is what impact could be coming, and then go one step further and say how could these things, what would that impact actually do to the river itself? Okay, so good luck with all this, and I'm sure it's going to be great. You guys have done some great work so far.